What time do you go live?
In 50 seconds, 45 seconds.
Go get him, David. Look, I moved it around.
It's on now. So oh man, what's too late. We're getting started in 10 seconds. Look at us. Out here trying to save democracy. All right. Welcome. My name is Dr. David Kemp. I'm the head of the Dialogue Company. And I really appreciate y'all for tuning in to this 15-minute power preview of Connect to Win, the new online training course in relationship network deep canvassing. So feel free to put into the chat where you are dialing in from. We will proceed. So in this 15 minutes, we're going to talk about what this project is, why it was created, how it works, and how you can help us move it forward. So the stakes of this election couldn't be higher, and you hear that from both sides of the aisle. This is a critical election for the sake of this country, for the future of democracy even. And one of the things that we all are dealing with is the fact that everybody feels that it's really important to address this, to move this election forward, but people have very different visions of that. That's what elections are about. But it seems like we're at a place where people can't talk about this election really well. People are super nervous about it. They're anxious about it. They feel everything's on the line, but they don't know what to do. Until we do traditional things, which are important. We go out and some people knock on doors and send postcards and all that. But what seems to be the case is that given the level of divisiveness in our country, that seems at unprecedented levels, 88% of people think the nation is too divided. It seems like many of us feel like we can't talk about the election or can't talk about politics to people in our circle. And the point of our free course, did I say it was free? Our free course, Connect to Win, is to undermine that. Is to basically make a statement that we can talk to each other. We can talk to our family and friends. We can talk to people we know. We can talk to our neighbors, whether they have similar beliefs or different beliefs. There are ways of talking about politics that help us not only feel more connected to each other, to undermine the sense of divisiveness, but also can help us move closer to the election results that we want. We are very, very fortunate to be at a place in the understanding of human communication where we know with little doubt that persuasion runs through connection. I will say it differently. What scientists who study both persuasion and connection have found is that the things that you should do in a conversation in order to connect to somebody, in order to lower the sense of division, in order to feel like, okay, we're not as disunited, we're not on different pages, the things you would do to undermine that sense of divisiveness are the exact same things you would do if what you're trying to do is to persuade people, to get them to think about voting differently. Persuasion runs through connection. So the great news is that if all of us do a little bit better at learning those skills that are both the things that would connect and the things that would persuade, we're all better off. Because we feel closer to each other, we feel less divided, and we can feel more like we can get the result we want. Because if we do those things reasonably well, we have the highest chance of influencing our friends, influencing our neighbors, influencing people in our family toward the electoral result we want. Now, my awareness of the fact that there's a coalescence between the steps for persuasion and the steps from connection come from decades and decades of thinking about the nature of dialogue. I've studied dialogue for 30, 35 years. I've had various clients. I've worked for foundations. I've worked for universities. I've worked for the White House. I've worked for organizations that held very large dialogue events where 1,000 people or 2,000 people or 3,000 people talked about the future of a city, or talked about strategic plan, or talked about how to redevelop after a disaster. And so I have been a little obsessed, frankly, with the underlying nature of a good conversation, and what do we need to do to teach people so that we can increase the probability that people can have a productive exchange that feels more collaborative and less divisive. So I've done that for a long time. And in the past few decades, what there has been is findings from neuroscience as well as from social psychology that tell us what people should do. What are the principles that people need to embody and enact if they're going to have conversations that are less divided, more connecting, and what are the principles that people need to do in order to be more persuasive to others? And it's a blessing to us all that these are the same set of practices. And so now our collective task is to spread those skills to as many people as possible. And that's what this course is for. So most people have strong feelings about the level of division. I think 88% of people say our country is too divided. Some people don't care about politics. Some people care about politics a lot. But we all feel like we don't want to have another divisive conversation. We don't want to have to be careful. We don't want to have another conversation where people are accusing each other. We don't want to replicate the divisions we see in some of our political leaders. We don't want to do that. We want peace at home. So the good news is that if we learn skills that will that are about, turns out, listening, empathy, storytelling, it turns out that these skills that will help us become more persuasive to other people are also the skills that help us connect to other people. Again, persuasion runs through connection. And so the reason we created this course, and we usually put it online, is because people need to know those skills. Now, the skills that we teach are related to something called deep canvassing. So people who basically get paid in order to try to mobilize people to influence elections have discovered that the most effective way of trying to influence people are to use these skills and to not just send people out to knock on a door and hand a postcard, but rather to have people talk at some length and with a focus on listening and understanding to people at their door. So you have a whole new effort now in the past few years to mobilize people, not for these short little conversations, but rather longer, more extended exchanges that are about listening, empathy, etc. But what has not happened is that we've not had efforts by political campaigns to mobilize these skills, to push them out, to disseminate them so that people are talking to people in their network, people they already know about elections. And so that's why this course, Connect to Win, this free course, is on what is called relationship network deep canvassing. And that means using these skills of persuasion within our relationship network. So that is what this free course is about. What we will teach you is how to look at your relationship network, look at all the people you know, and maybe you don't look at all the people you know. Maybe you narrow down from, most people know about 150 or 200 people by name, but most people, if you press them and say, who are, a couple dozen, few dozen people that you could talk to 3 times before the election, and it wouldn't be too weird. So all the people from your brother who you might not talk to that much about politics, all the way to your favorite barista or the guy that runs the dry cleaning. Um, who are some people that you could talk to a few times about the election if you knew that the conversation was not likely to be divisive, that you have a good, that the conversation would itself bring you together? So we will teach you how to do a quick survey of everybody to figure out who are the high priority people. Now, given how divided we are, the point is to not send people out to have conversations with the most intense people on the other side, who you're just going to have a unproductive argument, but rather, who are the people who it makes the most sense to talk to if your goal is to move votes and try to influence people to vote if they're not voting, or to vote your way if they're undecided. Now, the magic on some level of this whole effort that we're teaching is that the methods you would use to influence people who you could influence to move in your direction, the methods are the same methods if you really were trying to engage somebody who was very diametrically opposed to you. It's the same strategy. It's the same set of skills, and these skills are actually useful to you. I will lay out the principles really quickly, which are gone into more extensively in the free course. The critical thing, if you're going to be effective in trying to build connection or create or to move persuasively, is you got to calm down. You got to center yourself. You got to intentionally center yourself so you can approach the conversation less reactively and more strategically. You want to shift the conversation to asking questions to get not at people's just their opinion, but to the experiences below their opinion. So we're going to teach you how to ask experience-based questions. So you shift the conversation from a battle of opinion to we're sharing stories about our experiences. We're going to teach you a very important principle on how you go from there where the conversation is shifted to storytelling. We're going to explore the ABC rule, agreements before challenges, which basically, if you're trying to influence somebody or connect to them, what you want to do is create a sense of agreement in the conversation, and that requires some work because if they're non-voters and you're a voter and you feel strongly, you're going to have to find a way to have some agreement in the conversation. You basically, your goal is to tell them, I don't think you're completely crazy. And how do you do that? And that's particularly even more challenging if they vote for candidates that you don't like, but it is possible to do that. And we will push you to do that in the training course, the online free training course. So you got to calm down. You got to ask questions to move the conversation to experiences and away from opinion. And you want to agree before you challenge, ABC rule. A critical thing to do is to not be too thirsty for a result. You have to have some level of detachment from a result, because people can suss out that if you're just here to manipulate them, they can know that. And then finally, you want to learn how to end on a note of connection and gratitude, no matter how it goes. Again, our free course, which is composed of separate modules, each are about 4 minutes apiece. So you can watch one at a time, or they're in little mini modules of uh, 5 to 7 of these things. You can binge watch it a little bit. So you have some of these modules focus on the background to this method, the science behind the method. We have a set of modules that prepare you to do it. It is possible to prepare to do different way of communicating by practicing on non-political topics, perhaps with not the people you really want to influence later. You're saving those up after you identified those people, after you learn the skills. You want to practice a little bit, and before you go out and really try to persuade. So there's talking to people about voting who lean your way, but who might not vote. And we all know people like that. A third of Americans don't vote. So everybody knows people who would vote like them if they voted, but who might not vote. And so part of what we do is to teach you how to find those people. And then there's people who are undecided. They're committed to voting, but they don't know who they want to vote for. So the undecided voters. So we give you instructions about how to talk to either of those people. And it depends on who you are. It depends if you're a conservative person. We have materials for that. We have some modules that are for conservative people who are pro Harris, and we have ones for liberal people who are pro Harris. And to talk to undecided voters. But no matter who you are, we all know people who don't vote, and we have instructions about how to talk to those people. We have a general purpose one and one for Blacks and other people of color. So we are really, really grateful that we have had the opportunity to push this course out, to make it available for free for anybody who wants it. It's going to exist here on YouTube, and we're pushing it out on other platforms, um, Instagram and TikTok as well as in Facebook. So what we're hoping is that you can put us in contact with organizations who might want to push this out broadly, because ultimately we're really trying to influence the election. And the more people who see it, the more people we can impact and affect the culture to make it less divided and to get the results that we want. And anybody who goes to connecttowin.org, just like it sounds, and leaves us their contact information this week, we will enter you in a drawing to win signed copies of a book we did 4 years ago called Compassion Transforms Contempt, as well as our White Ally Toolkit flagship book. So I invite you to go to connecttowin.org and leave us your contact information. And if you know organizations that we should contact, go to the contact page on our website. You'll be in the website if you go to connecttowin.org and tell us the organizations that we should contact, and we'll get back to you and do that, because it is so important that more Americans learn how to talk about politics. We can make conversation about politics great again. We can make Thanksgiving great again. There was no need for us to be so divided when there are available strategies that will help us, whether we have a little bit of disagreement with somebody or a lot, and we all need to learn those. I want to thank you all so much for your attendance, and we'll have these sessions all next week, Thursday night, both tomorrow and next week on TikTok. We'll have another YouTube live next Wednesday here on YouTube. We're going Instagram this Friday, Instagram live this Friday as well as next Friday, and we'll be back on Facebook Live next Tuesday. Thank you so much for your time, and go out there, and we hope you continue to connect to win.